And welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Martin False, and we are now joined by the Sheriff of Lafourche Parish, longtime Sheriff and friend Craig Webre. And Sheriff, how are you today?
Martin, we have been extremely busy in the last 24 hours, particularly in the Bayou Blue area, but we're doing well, and I'm waiting for the sun to shine and brighten up the day.
No doubt about it. Sheriff, if we could, we'll talk about the tornadoes and the winds and the front that came through, last night, late last night. But let's talk about the four arrests that were made by your department. And it seems to me some are quite troubling. It seems like, and I talked with Captain Brennan the other day, some of these young arrests that y'all are making, they're getting more brazen each and every day. Is that your take on it?
We are seeing an increased level of violence with younger and younger people, particularly people related to narcotics or drug trade. We see that there are shootings that will happen in one neighborhood, and they're very specific. I mean, the people who are involved generally know who the other parties are, but they almost have adopted a what I call the mafia mentality of they will not cooperate with law enforcement and prefer to try to deal with it on their own, which then exposes more innocent victims to perhaps getting injured with drive-by shootings or shootings, random shootings at one another. So I think that it is an evolution of this younger, more brazen criminal element.
Let's talk about the first incident that occurred at 9 a.m. on January 24th on St. Marie Drive in Bayou Blue. Can you bring us through that one if you can?
Yeah, Martin, that was a combination of being in the right place at the right time and good police work. We were following up on some actually narcotics information. Our narcotics people were in the neighborhood, and as they were traveling in the neighborhood, they actually observed a vehicle occupied by Lauren Leday and Trevante Walker exiting from a residence coming down the street. And there was a third person, the victim female, who was being dragged, if you will, trying to get in the car as the car was driving away and actually was pushed out the car and then the car left. So the first two officers who happened to be there, again, for an unrelated purpose, unrelated to that address and those people in specific, they went to render aid and they called out a description of the car that was leaving. The third officers engaged the car, which it resulted in a short pursuit. The two offenders jumped out of the car and ran to the back of Meadowland subdivision. They were ultimately detained, and along the path that they had taken from where they ditched the car to where they were apprehended, our officers recovered a firearm, recovered a large amount of marijuana, and recovered a key fob. So those people were taken into custody, and we were processing that case and interviewing witnesses and putting the facts together. And then we get a call in the Bayou Blue area off of Cypress Court of what initially came in as an armed robbery carjacking. When we did the investigation, and on that one, the victim, or there were two victims really, one of the victims called in a description of the car shortly after it was stolen. And one of our officers happened to be in the Bayou Blue area, intercepted the car and attempted a traffic stop, which again resulted in them ditching the car. And let me clarify, I confused when I said in the first case that they ran. They were apprehended and the marijuana was there. This is the case with Michael Jules and Javante Miller, the second case on Cypress Court, where they drove to the back of the subdivision and they were apprehended and the marijuana and the gun and the key fob was recovered. These two offenders approached the victim's residence on foot, knocked on the door, and they asked for a specific individual. The person that they had asked if she was there was not there, and they left. The owner of the residence, or the occupant of the residence, the male occupant, he left the residence, went to the convenience store, at that point not thinking anything out of the ordinary. When he was returning home from traveling back from the convenience store, he encountered the same two individuals, Michael Jules and Javante Miller, and gave them a ride. And when they got to the house, they asked for something to drink. He went into the house. When he returned, they pulled a firearm on him. He was able to run away and call the police. And then one of the two went into the house. There was a female in there. They stole what ultimately turned out to be a large amount of marijuana. And then they left in the car that they took from the residence. They took the first victim's vehicle. And that's when one of our officers, a patrol officer, traffic officer, intercepted them and they attempted to make a traffic stop. They ran off into the field area behind Meadowland. They were ultimately captured and detained. Evidence was located. They were brought into the office. They were interrogated, and they confessed to this crime.
All right, Sheriff, we appreciate that. And what I'm going to do, I want to definitely talk to you more about the high winds and the tornadoes that hit the area. So we'll take a short break here, pause for a second, let you take another sip of your coffee, and we'll be right back to talk about those high winds that your law enforcement and many law enforcement officers went through last night. So we'll be right back with the Sheriff of Lafourche Parish. Don't go away.